Welcome to Book to Blueprint, where powerful books become practical blueprints for real life. You do not need more information, you need execution. This is Book to Blueprint. All right, welcome. Today, we're not just going to talk about a sales theory. No, we are building an execution plan. We're taking Neil Rackham's incredible research and turning it into a practical blueprint you can use on your very next call. Ready? Let's dive in. So let's just start with the big question, right? How do you actually succeed in those huge, complex sales? The ones that can make or break your whole quarter. Well, the old high pressure tactics, they just don't cut it. The answer is a pretty radical shift in how you think about selling altogether. And here it is. This is the absolute core of the whole philosophy. The best of the best, they don't push solutions. They skillfully guide a conversation and they create this environment where the buyer basically discovers the need for the solution all on their own. It is so much more powerful and, believe me, way more effective. So what's the end game here? What happens when you apply this blueprint? Well, your entire role transforms. You stop being a product pusher who just lists off features, and you become this trusted advisor, someone who helps diagnose and solve real, meaningful business problems. And, when you get this right, your sales calls completely change. They stop feeling like a pitch, and they start feeling like these valuable, collaborative sessions. Buyers will actually look forward to talking to you because you're helping them see their own challenges in a new, deeper way. Okay, so let's get to the big idea that drives everything. It's actually really simple, but it's also incredibly profound. Stop talking about your product. Stop leading with your company or your amazing solution. Instead, you need to start every single conversation with a relentless focus on the buyer's world and their problems. And this quote from the original research just nails it. Your job is not to invent a need out of thin air. It's to find a problem that's already there and, through really smart questioning, help the buyer realize for themselves that the pain of not fixing it is way worse than the cost of your solution. So how do we actually do this? Well, this is your operating system. Think of it as your toolkit for putting that big idea into action. It's a sequence of 4 different types of questions that make up the acronym SPIN. Let's break them down. First up, we've got S, and S stands for situation questions. These are your basic fact-finding questions. Stuff like, so what system are you all using now? Or how many people do you have on that team? You need this stuff to get the lay of the land, but here's a word of warning. Use these sparingly. If you ask too many, you start to sound less like a helpful consultant and more like you're conducting an audit. Okay, next up in the operating system is P, and that stands for problem questions. And this is where the conversation really starts to get good. Problem questions are all about uncovering difficulties and frustrations. Think, is that process always reliable for you? Or what are some of the drawbacks of the way you're doing it now? Every time you get a yes to one of these, that's an implied need. It's the raw material you're going to use to build your case. Now for what I think is the most powerful and honestly the hardest part of the whole thing, I for implication questions. This right here is the skill that separates the amateurs from the pros. See, once you find a problem, your gut instinct is to jump in and solve it. You have to resist that urge. Instead, you explore the consequences. You take a small frustration, like a system that's a little slow, and you ask, so what's the downstream impact of that delay on your project deadlines? You're not just discussing a problem, you're building up the pain of that problem until it feels urgent. And finally, after you built up the problem, you gently guide the buyer toward the light at the end of the tunnel with N for need payoff questions. These questions are magic because they totally flip the script. Instead of you explaining how great your solution is, you ask questions that get the buyer to state the benefits for you. What would it mean for your team if you could achieve that? Or if we could eliminate that bottleneck, how would that help you? When the benefits come out of their mouth, not yours, oh man, the impact is 100 times more powerful. They are literally selling themselves. Okay, so that's the theory, but we're here for execution, right? So let's turn all this into a super clear 3-step action plan you can start using right away. Step 1 is simple, plan. Before you ever pick up the phone, map out your potential questions. What facts do you need? What problems do you suspect they have? Step 2, execute. You follow the SPIN flow, but remember to listen carefully and adapt as you go. And step 3, secure and advance. This is all about knowing what a win actually looks like on any given call. And this idea completely redefines success. In a big, complex sale, you're not always going for the final order. You're aiming for an advance. And that's not some vague, yeah, let's talk again soon. No, it's a firm commitment from the buyer to take a specific action that moves the deal forward, like agreeing to schedule a demo with their engineering team. That is a tangible win. Look, knowing the model is one thing, but mastering it is a whole different ballgame. And that takes building specific, repeatable habits until this whole approach just becomes second nature. Here are the 3 habits you gotta build. First, planning isn't something you do if you have time. It's a non-negotiable ritual. Second, you have to shift your entire mindset. You are a problem solver first, a seller second. And third, act like a pro. With permission, record your calls and actually listen back to them. Find those moments where you started telling instead of asking. So why do so many people learn about this amazing model and then just fail to use it? Honestly, because it's hard work. It's way easier to just talk about your product. So let's look at the most common traps so you can avoid them. The number one mistake is just falling back into old habits, what the book calls the laziness of telling rather than asking. The old way is all about pushing your agenda. The SPIN way is about the discipline of asking questions to uncover the buyer's agenda and then building value together. So please avoid these 3 deal killers. 1, don't treat this like a robotic script. It's a flexible framework for a real conversation. 2, don't give up when it feels a little awkward at first. Like any new skill, it takes practice. And most importantly, fight that urge to pitch your solution the second you hear a tiny problem. You have to develop the pain first. So there you have it, the complete blueprint for execution. You've got the theory, the tools, the action plan, and you know the pitfalls to avoid. The only thing left to do is to actually put it into practice. So the real question isn't whether you understand SPIN. It's what specific buyer problem are you going to go out and solve with it first? If you have a book in mind that should be added to our list, comment below. If this blueprint helped you, subscribe and build with us. We are doing this one book at a time. Remember, you do not attract what you want. You attract what you do. More blueprints are coming. Stay intentional, stay consistent. Now it is time to act and build.